There have been many fusions revealed on Steven Universe over the years. Some were expected, and some were rather surprising. Each has their own set of skills that sets them apart from the rest, and we feel it's time to tackle the question, which fusion comes out on top? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Steven Universe Fusions, Weak to Powerful. Now, we have some rules for placement before we begin. Fusions are the physical and magical abilities of each gem or person, so we will be taking into account who is making up that fusion and how much power they are bringing into this team up. Now, for each of these fusions, they had time to discover what abilities they could transfer over and what weapon they can create. It's important to note that sometimes a gem is at a level of strength they weren't with other fusions, or certain combinations show to be more stable than others, so that will also affect the ranking. Starting off, we're going to place two fusions from the off colors, Rhodonite and Fluorite. Despite being fully gem, we don't actually see them perform any grand act or heroic feat. The entire group reveals that they have been in hiding for years to avoid being shattered. Rhodonite is a combination of a ruby and a pearl, but we don't know all the 6 gems that make up Fluorite. Their unwillingness to come out of hiding is forgivable, given Homeworld's view on fusions being disgusting if they consist of 2 different gems, or more in Fluorite's case. But they also show loyalty towards Lars when he helps them hide and avoid being shattered. They refuse to go back to Earth without him, and jump on a chance to reside on a planet where they can be themselves without harassment or judgment. Next is Stag, the fusion created by Steven and Greg. Rocking 4 arms, a pompadour, and a nice set of pipes, he was basically just a manifestation of Steven and Greg's stage presence. He has floating powers and can give that ability to others around him, which was pretty unique to this specific team-up. He's affected by emotion, but also can connect deeply with those around him, as shown with Pearl when he helps her regain her memory and leads her to fuse with Amethyst. Stevonnie is up next. Being another human and gem mix, she's lower in power because of that human limitation. However, during her training with Pearl and her fights, she does slowly reveal the abilities she has. She can use Steven's shield and does possess floating powers, though she doesn't appear to be able to transfer that to others like Stag does. She's also greatly affected by emotion, which makes sense since Steven is a core member of this team, and that's how his powers work. Her ability to wield a sword makes her a worthy opponent, and the added fact that she's usually riding a massive lion helps her intimidation factor. The Rubies, being all gem, have the advantage over any human mix. They don't have to worry about being killed unless their gems are shattered. That makes them more eager to fight an opponent and willing to be more reckless. Unfortunately, most Rubies are a bit slower to catch on to much of anything, so they're easy to get the upper hand on. Rubies rely mostly on raw power, but with our main Ruby, we learn that they can also stand extreme heat and have a natural tie with fire. In fact, it's Garnet's Ruby that gives her the ability to swim in lava without an issue, so this fusion has some potential. Smoky Quartz is next on our list. The first fusion of Steven and another gem, this is the embodiment of him with Amethyst. They learn to use their weapons as a giant yo-yo they can maneuver in various ways, from using it to swing from place to place, to tying others up, to being a long-distance weapon. This is not a very stable team-up, with both Steven and Amethyst being incredibly self-conscious and constantly worrying about how to help the best they can. She does learn super speed, but doesn't use it at its full capacity, and so we can only state that Smoky is one of those with a lot of potential, but not much given to the audience. Rainbow Quartz was originally Rose and Pearl, with them using the fusion more for fun than for battle. In fact, when we're shown this form, they only use it to show off in front of Greg. The only reason she isn't ranked lower is because of who was forming her. Rose was originally Pink Diamond and can obviously maintain forms aside from her original one for a long period of time, meaning the fuse could be one of the most stable. That, along with the fact that she's with Pearl, the gem who worshipped her, would mean they would be able to utilize weapons easier. It wouldn't have been the healthiest relationship, but it would have been impressive to see on the battlefield. It only makes sense to place Rainbow Quartz 2.0 next. Now, because Steven didn't have all of Pink Diamond's power and only used this fusion to help with Onion, we didn't get to see the full capabilities of this gem. This team is ranked a little higher because Steven did manage to use some imagination to push the fusion further. They learned to mimic a lot of Mary Poppins moves, flying up stair railings, using an umbrella for transportation and cleanup, and making toys and clothes sentient enough to make them put themselves up. If we saw them as more than a babysitter while on screen, they could be capable of being far more intimidating. But they also imply that the form and all those powers can be hard to maintain, with Steven quickly exhausted by it. Topaz fused to make a bigger Topaz, but she's worth mentioning. Her ability is simple enough, to be able to hold others inside of her like a trap of some sort. We have to rank her a little higher despite only having that one ability because of how problematic it was for the gems. Her form was incredibly hard to disrupt, even from the inside, and being around her is a claustrophobic's worst nightmare. She was taken down for a short time by Steven expanding his bubble while trapped, but as he doesn't attempt that move again, we can only imagine how difficult it must have been the first time. Bluebird Azurite was a combination of the eyeball Ruby and Aquamarine. They could have been much stronger, but the truth is Ruby is too overzealous for revenge, and Aquamarine relies on manipulation rather than raw strength. They were a threat for sure, but they didn't utilize it enough during their time on screen, usually pulling pranks and just trying to get Steven's guard down. Aquamarine lost her status as being one of the most well-regarded gems in Blue Diamond's court, and Eyeball had a long-standing grudge against Steven after being humiliated. Eyeball made a few appearances, aside from her initial team-up with the other Rubies, testifying at Steven's trial, and being the one to be stuck in space with him. Even after being healed by Steven, she still insisted on destroying him once she realized he had Rose's gem. Garnet is seen as a perfect fusion, being an expression of love between Ruby and Sapphire. They were the first known fusion of two different gems and fought for their right to be together. She has massive amounts of physical strength, a resistance to extreme heat and cold, the ability to stay submerged in deep water for extended periods of time, and the ability to see possibilities of the future. She was made the leader after Rose gave up her form for her son and was the most level-headed of the group. Everyone went to her for advice and guidance. She relies on Sapphire's cool temperament and future vision, as well as Ruby's impulsiveness and brawn, to be able to keep her team safe. Opal was the first gem fusion we were knowingly introduced to, being a combination of amethyst and pearl. It isn't the most stable, since the two personalities conflict a lot, but when they do have a goal in mind, such as saving Steven from a giant bird, they prove to be quite a powerhouse. Throughout the times we see her archery skills, her speed, and her physical strength, proving she's a worthy adversary. The way she flipped through the air to get Steven to safety before taking down the enemy was impressive. Steven and Garnet surprised us with a shockingly optimistic Sunstone. The more you see her, the more you might suspect her true power is breaking the fourth wall. She's concerned with safety, using her upbeat attitude to get people to sit through lectures and videos. She's one of the strongest, shoving off the foot of the joined diamond ships off of her with ease, before climbing up with shields turned into suction cups. Since we have limited interactions with her, we can only guess the other capabilities Sunstone could have, based on Garnet and Steven's other fusions. The Pearls, much like the Rubies, has a more in-tune personality, emphasizing each pearl. She comes off as a royal figure, using her ribbon as a drill and her dancer's figure as a way to quickly maneuver through danger. She doesn't have fire's breath, but the combined determination to protect Steven and each other showed that they can put up a fight worth remembering. They were able to hold together for a while, due to the two of them being connected through Pink Diamond, one having put her on a pedestal, and the other having been deeply hurt by Pink's actions. But together, they were able to see the full picture and take a step towards moving on. Coming at you live, we have Sardonyx. We see quite a bit of her during one particular episode, with Garnet and Pearl having to fuse multiple times to take out the communication hub. She's got a fun sense of humor and incorporates some fun magician-like moves, which explains much of Rainbow 2.0's behavior. She joins the weapons of her gems together to create a large hammer and drill combination. She's precise and a weird mixture of arrogant and humble. She does reappear after Smoky is introduced to the team, being way too excited about seeing Smoky's full abilities. She may be an unstable fusion, but we have to give the next spot to Sugilite. When Amethyst and Garnet joined, they got carried away with how powerful they were. She was a force of destruction and chaos that only showed some level-headedness after Garnet found out Pearl had lied to her, and the only goal was to destroy the hub in her anger. No doubt, a force of nature you don't want to go toe-to-toe with. unless you have as good of aim as Pearl. Malachite, while a villain, was a strong enough force that it needed all three of our most well-known gems to take it on. The very creation of Malachite was terrifying, with Jasper begging Lapis to join her to destroy the crystal gems. Between Lapis and her control of all things water-based, and Jasper's determination to take out any rival, they could have been unstoppable if they had shared a goal in mind. Luckily, that wasn't the case, and this fusion was taken down. The bronze metal of the most powerful is Alexandrite, the joined forces of Garnet, Pearl, and Amethyst. Packing a powerful punch and fire breath, she incorporates all the abilities learned from the other fusions. She can shoot arrows, whip away attacks, twist her upper body around, and use her bad attitude to her advantage. She loses some points being unstable in earlier episodes, the three conflicting too much when not in the heat of battle, but that's forgivable. It should be a shock to no one that Obsidian came out as one of the strongest fusions. A combination of Garnet, Pearl, Amethyst, and Steven was the form they used to take on White Diamond. She isn't seen long, but making a sword with lava that's pulled in one of your mouths? Look, that's not only impressive, it's just downright awesome. Her ample amount of arms make it easy for her to climb and fight all at once, while still catching any innocent bystanders. She may not have defeated White Diamond, but she did pretty well, considering it was her first fight. So who comes out on top? Who gets the gold medal of strongest fusion? Alright, this may surprise some, but we have to list Steven Universe himself, as he's technically a fusion between Pink Diamond and Greg. After assuming the form of Rose Quartz, she gave up her form to help create Steven with her human lover. When Steven's gem is removed, it takes the form of a pink version of himself before fusing back with him, and because of this, Steven has a lot of impressive power. Super speed, shape-shifting, connecting with and healing others, controlling plants and making them sentient, overpowering the diamonds by turning their own abilities against them, summoning his shields and bubbles, and the ability to actually fuse with other humans, since he is partially organic. Not only does this fusion have the most tricks, but his relationship between his forms is more stable than Garnet's. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil and Weak to Powerful playlist, where we break down the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.